The daily cyber briefing for Tuesday, the 20th of February. I'm Stephen Ridgway. So, a little bit of good news. International law enforcement has taken down or taken control of multiple darknet domains operated by the Lockbit ransomware group. So, the authorities from 11 countries, which is basically everybody you would think of that would be involved in this stuff: UK, US, Australia, Canada, Finland, France, Germany, Japan, Netherlands, Sweden, Switzerland, and Europol. So the websites are currently showing one of these takedown messages, which is a bit of good news for anybody who has been targeted by that particular group. Iran and Hezbollah have been linked to attacks based around influencing the Israel-Hamas narrative associated with the war. So there's a good article in the Hacker News that demonstrates quite how wide-ranging these attacks are, and names some of the groups associated with this. There is an article, a diagram, a figure in the article, I will get the words out eventually, that actually shows quite nicely which particular groups are associated with Iran and in what way, and gives some indication of what sorts of things they're going to be doing. So it is based on some good intelligence, including some Microsoft-based threat intel. So it is quite a useful article to read. It's a little bit longer than your average article, but it is worth having a look at. If you are interested in what is going on from the perspective of how a real world war, not a real world war, but a war in the real world, and offensive actions in cyberspace align. This makes some very interesting reading. So yeah, worth having a look, even if you don't think that your organisation is directly in the firing line associated with these things. Simply by being UK based means there is a possibility that you will come to get on the radar, even if you didn't realise you would. There is a critical remote code execution flaw in the Bricks WordPress site builder. As we said, every time there's something in WordPress crops up, I can't iterate enough how you need to keep on top of patching in the WordPress environment, themes, plugins, you name it. You've got to keep on top of this stuff. It doesn't all auto update all the time. It should, but it doesn't always. So yeah, have a look. There is active exploitation underway. So there are some indicators of attack or indicators of compromise, depending on how you look at it. It's a list of IP addresses where the majority of attacks are coming from. Definitely stuff to block on your virtual firewalls or your web application firewalls. Also stuff to look for in your SIEM or your security visibility tooling. Connections made to or from these particular IP addresses should be considered dubious at best. The EU Court of Human Rights has rejected a call for encryption backdoors. I have to admit, it's rare that I fully support the ECHR, not in principle, but just in the actions that it takes. However, this time it does look like they have properly got it right. The case that was being considered was the Russian government claiming that the intrusion into private lives resulting from decrypting messages was necessary to combat terrorism in a democratic society. The government pointed out a 2017 terrorist attack, which was coordinated from abroad, as they say, through Telegram, which is encrypted. The argument from Telegram's side was that messaging services can't technically build a backdoor for governments without impacting all the users. And it argued that the threat of mass surveillance could be enough to infringe on human rights. I think that is a solid decision, in my own clearly not too humble opinion, but you know what I mean. I think that is the right way forward. Breaking encryption because a government wants to be able to snoop on people is problematic. If we could be certain they would only snoop on the bad guys, that would be fine. But what we do know is that every government, it used to be the case, I think, that it was less prevalent in the Western world or in the UK, but I'm not so sure it is anymore. I think being defined as the bad guys simply means you disagree with what somebody in government is saying these days. So there is now, I think, at least a glimmer of hope in the very problematic push to break encryption around, certainly in Europe. So it's interesting. Have a read of that if this stuff is of interest to you. Yeah, I know. I'm part of one of my consistent rants. However, we've been talking about the fact that biometrics, collection of biometrics and use of biometrics for identification or authentication, or however you want to put it, is more problematic than you would think at first glance. And I did say, well, it won't be long before they're collecting your DNA. Well, guess what? Vietnam is to collect biometrics, including DNA, for new ID cards. Iris scans, voice samples, blood types, and DNA are to be included in their new database. Watch this space for all sorts of bad things that will happen as a consequence of that. Finally, from me, if you are a parent, be aware of this one. There is an interesting article in HackRead that says 1 in 5 UK youth engage in cybercrime. So 1 in 5 children aged between 10 and 16 have engaged in online activities that violate the Computer Misuse Act. The things that are most commonly done that break the law are unauthorized access to computer systems or data, cyberbullying and harassment, copyright infringement, and online gaming offences, which includes things like making in-game purchases without permission, using cheats or hacks to gain unfair advantage, and blah, 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 blah. Is this credible? Well, the report comes from the National Crime Agency. So I suspect it is a credible report in that sense. So if you are the parent of a youth, or if you've got kids in that sort of age range, make sure you have a serious conversation with them about how this stuff works, what is and what isn't legal, regardless of what their mates are doing, because their influence, they will be influenced by what everybody else is doing much more than, their knowledge of what their friends are doing is much better than their knowledge of what's legal and what's illegal. If you don't have the ability to, or you don't have any visibility on what your kids are doing on their devices, or on your home networks or PCs or whatever it may be, laptops, I suggest you seriously consider getting yourself some means of doing that. Even if you've given a 16-year-old a phone, it's very unlikely they're going to allow you to put any parental control software. But the other side of that is, well, if they're in your network, you can see what they're doing. So, make them aware that this stuff is not anonymous, and nothing you do on the internet is genuinely anonymous. You can make it harder to track you down, but that doesn't mean to say you can't be tracked down. And I think that's one of the things that kids really don't grasp. They believe that what they're doing, especially if they've got some dodgy fake accounts that or whatever, they think it can never be traced back to them. So at least telling them that it can be may not be a bad thing. Well, that is quite enough from me for today. Hope you had a good start to the week yesterday. Hope you have a good Tuesday, and I'll